What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fitness Break Room podcast. I'm your host, Sam Pogue. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona at Exos HQ with performance manager Eric Dannenberg. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, excited to be here, Sam.
Dude, it's let's see, I've known you for about a year now, and not like a ton of interaction, but we met at FRC
Absolutely.
in November of 2000.
Yes, about 2 years ago at FRC down at your headquarters.
Jeez, I can't believe it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
That's a little crazy. Fun fact, a lot of you might see kind of coming up, Onnit and Exos are partnering together, and Onnit's going to be the new supplement partner for Exos across the board, and they're going to help us provide a lot of new resources for our athletes and new delivery of new products on top of being able to help get a lot of our current products up to date for athletes and team sports.
Yeah.
So, as the performance manager, what does that mean? What does that do here?
Yeah. Basically, everyone that walks through those doors, we've got to make sure that, one, we have a solid product for them to get results. And then two, that operationally we can provide that product. So if it's an education course, is the culinary aware that 28 people are coming in next week, or hopefully more in advance? What athletes are coming through? What's the time of year? We're very off-season, season-based. So I'm excited. Baseball playoffs are going on because that means my baseball guys will be here. So we've been prepping for the baseball offseason to get them ready for their spring training. After that will come combine. After that will come NFL offseason. And so we're very seasonal when athletes are off. At the same time, we have a lot of, once again, education events coming through here. We'll have tactical groups coming through here. We work a lot with partnerships like yourselves, Onnit, Adidas, Skills, Kaiser, a lot of equipment, just beta testing and helping our partners be best in class, so we as a result can deliver best in class products to our clients. And so really making sure that everything that comes to those doors, we're ready to operate and execute at a really high level on. And everyone is either we're pulling in the experts for each piece, or we might be reaching out to someone like yourself to help us with a tactical group coming in, and just always trying to grow our system, our communication, and our product. And that's the beautiful thing about fitness is where we are now versus 1 year ago when we met, or 2 years ago versus 10 years ago. And so that's the other big piece, is driving the culture.
That's so awesome, because Exos is realistically a leader in the fitness industry, not only in terms of performance training, but education as well. But that you guys are so malleable to other systems out there to learn from, and that you guys are continually students as much as you are anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't pretend to invent the wheel. We want to take best practices. We want to continue to evolve our best practices as human performance continues to be pioneered. And so it's a balance of, there's always going to be technology in the new, and we've also made, our staple being just do the basics really well, or do the simple things savagely well, is what we always say. And so it's really that balance of being able to beta test, with ourselves, with our coaches, with certain groups before we just release it, and start educating others, or start proving those results with our through our internal research, or with our just groups and athletes in-house.
So for people who don't know, what is Exos?
Yeah, absolutely. Exos has been around since 1999. Mark Verstegen was the founder. He was over at IPI, International Performance Institute, which is now IMG. So when he was there as part of Ledbetter Golf, which is still there, Bolletary Tennis Academy, so some really prolific programs within golf and tennis. So think rotational sports. He started all off-season baseball there as well. So a baseball athlete maybe had a nutritionist, probably had a chiropractor, maybe a personal trainer, maybe a track and field coach. Maybe one off-season they seeked out a track and field coach. One off-season they seeked out a strength and conditioning coach. And he put that all under one house. Wow. So he really designed a program for an athlete, be it baseball, golf, and tennis initially, that is going to house everything you need in your off season to upgrade you, your skill set, your body, your physiology, so that you can go out and do what you do at a higher level for longer. And so that's really the roots of Exos. And that started as a performance center in Florida, came over here to be even more of a refuge for athletes. There was a lot of youth training there, but he wanted to be able to provide the best systems and facilities all integrated in one place. And so he did that. And what that really did for Exos as a whole is the elite athlete has a small window of opportunity. I've got guys showing up, I hit the furthest drive in the world. Okay, so you want me to get you better? Aren't you already the best, right? And we find leaks in areas that we can upgrade them. But once again, the window of opportunity is small for a professional athlete. So that gave us a lot of success into other sports. And then we took that model to the general population. And now with some huge corporations and small, we're able to affect thousands. So the general population has a much bigger window of opportunity when you start to put in mobility, stability, and these general principles of our movement-based programming. So now we reach elite athletes, thousands of even 1 million by the end of the year, in total, with all of our corporate wellness, what we call works, and then tactical. And tactical is a huge area as well. We actually have Exos coaches, physical therapists, and dietitians on site at gyms or bases across the globe for special forces and SOCOM. And so the Exos training system has really proven its grounds with elite athletes, corporate wellness, and tactical. And we're able to influence and impact all those lives and continue to upgrade that product that's delivered, usually by beta testing stuff here at HQ and also taking in from our other best in practice partners and coaches across the globe.
How many other locations are there?
Yeah, so we have 5 legacy facilities, one in Carlsbad, California, one in LA at the StubHub Center, Dr. James Andrews in Florida, and USA Fieldhouse in Frisco, and then Arizona here in Phoenix. So we have those 5 main facilities that are a little bit more performance, professional athlete related, although we do have adult youth training going on there. And then we have what's called a powered by facility. And those are a really cool model in that there's already a hospital. Someone's getting knee surgery today, and then the doctor says, good luck. And you and me in the performance world know, well, that's 50% of it. You better have a damn good rehab. And so now there's an Exos embedded into these hospitals. So, it kind of feeds both ways. My grandmother's sick, and usually she drops me off to train at Exos. So now she's going to unfortunately have to go into the hospital. And my dad blew out his knee, but he's going to be able to do rehab and performance training and get back to his daily living activities or hobbies. And so those are a really nice model that we have all across the country as well. And then when you go into corporate wellness, we have facilities in Germany, in Ireland, and all over the globe. And tactically, almost anywhere there's a base in the globe, we have a facility as well. So there's a couple different models and ways that we can reach and influence those through human performance and our methodology.
It's so crazy. Like, I knew Exos through the performance realm and obviously what they did. And then as I started coming around here, it was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to it than what meets the eye. And it's super cool because it's been scaled with quality. And I think across the board, I think that's something, if you're familiar with Exos, that that's a reputation that you guys have.
Yeah.
How did you get here?
Yeah, well, I'm from Massachusetts, Framingham, Massachusetts. So masshole at heart. Although I like to think I'm a pretty good guy.
So go Yanks.
And something like that. But so, of course, if you live in Massachusetts, how do you get introduced to functional training in the world of high performance sport? But through Mike Boyle. So I spent some time down in his Boston University facility just observing, and then eventually kind of coming back for more observation, a little bit more formal internship, and started internships out here. And I did 2 internships out here, and then I did some kind of part-time work in exchange for some rehab that I had on my hip. I finished up school, was a ski bum for a year out in Colorado. Job opportunity came up, and at that point, I had had experience interning. They had known me as, what I can do as an individual, and my work ethic through my internships and my part-time work, and I was given the opportunity to start working here almost 10 years ago this May. So it's been a long time. I've been with the company since 2005 as an internship when we were maybe 30 people, and now we're over 3,000 people. So seen a lot of growth and been really fortunate that, just kind of perfect timing. 10 years ago, how many performance gyms were there? Not too many relative to today.
That's such a great story. And what I love the most is not that the effort wasn't well-deserved to get to where you are, is that you spent a lot of years being a servant in this industry, an intern. You interned from Mike Boyle. What were your internships out here?
Same thing. They were
Exos.
with Exos.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did like a 1.5 month internship. Then I came back a year later, during university for a full internship. Came back a couple months later for some part-time work in exchange for my rehab on my hip. And so, they really knew what type of drive and passion I had, and I saw the direction and forward thinking that Exos had. So I wanted to be a part of the company, and they wanted me to step in and fill a coaching role. So it was definitely, somewhat perfect timing, but I would like to think I definitely proved myself
Yeah.
through all those internship experiences.
Is this what you went to school for?
I did go to school. I always say school is the biggest waste of 4 years of my life. I went to University of Massachusetts for kinesiology, and it was just very grant and research based and not very practical based. And look, the real world is a lot harder than anyone ever tells you it is.
Yeah.
So most of my education has been very much, fortunately, through Exos a lot, but the Exos system. But then people like you coming in and learning from you and hosting a DNS class and an SFMA course and continuing education. We were talking about earlier, networking is not a word you hear in college. Continuing education is not a word you hear in college. Being open-minded is not a word you hear in college. And those three things, I think, really help you grow and develop. And it's not just those university years.
Yeah. So a lot of our audience they make up 3 different categories. I want to quit my accounting type job and I want to pursue my passion and be a trainer. Or I lost a bunch of weight, or I transformed my body and now I want to be a trainer.
Yeah.
Or I just finished school and now I think I want to be a trainer. And it's this interesting time because the barriers to entry to be into the fitness industry are relatively really low, right? But then the perception is, well, based on Instagram and YouTube, it's like, oh, well, I'm a trainer all of a sudden. All my friends asking me advice for fitness anyway, so that must mean I'm gonna have a huge full schedule. Athletes are gonna want to train with me.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case for you, was it? I mean, you went through and earning your stripes by interning and unpaid, I'm sure, and trying to figure that out.
It's definitely there's many different paths, which is nice, right? You can be in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, and start to become an expert, whether it be through online social media expert or that you're taking PRI courses from Ron Orushka online, or you're showing up to an Exos or to a Mike Boyle education piece. So there's so many, maybe low-hanging fruit, but then there's those things that you can do to separate yourself, be it through online certifications, or through showing up in person. And there's definitely some standards along the way. And that's nice. Everyone can be themselves within the world of human performance. There is just so many different avenues, right? Are you working with geriatrics? Are you working, I think all the time with our adult populations, think of what our parents were not exposed to. Were they even mentioning the word mindset, nutrition, recovery is like the big buzzword? Forget that, right? So I really like the idea that there's a lot of room in human performance for a lot of different professionals.
So, for you, I guess, what's the workflow around here like at Exos?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you said there's Grandma Betty's and GPP here, and then there's, high-level professional athletes.
Yeah.
I came from the 24-hour fitness realm. I'm going out and hustling all my own business, but it's all like, CEOs and housewives and et cetera. What's it like here? What's it like training at Exos?
Well, Exos, I always kind of tell people that I know personally or someone sends them along for an internship. It's like, go somewhere else first because this is a little bit of a utopia. Like, see what the real world is like. And then, if you still want to be in this field and I can get you an internship and experience, come on through. And so I say that because I'm very fortunate that I have some of, the world's best athletes just walk through, and not only do they want to get better, they're paying to get better. And in most of the places, if I'm, one of the best athletes for the Boston Red Sox, I can show up to anybody's gym and say, hey, here's my jersey, and I'll be here at 7 a.m. I don't care if you have Johnny for 7 years. I'm going to be here at 7 a.m. You're going to train me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, of course, we'll open the doors for you. And so I'm very fortunate that athletes want to come and show up and get educated. And there is also the reputation that we have to uphold. So I've been a part of the baseball program for probably about 7 years and running it, the past maybe 3 years or so. And so there's definitely that, I want to keep the reputation. I want to continue to have the best athletes walk through these doors because they are seeking us out as having the best coaches around. So there is some things that are somewhat handed to you. I had a special forces group show up 2 weeks ago, and I got to train and educate them. Would that have happened if I was out hustling on my own? Maybe. I know guys here in the Valley, coaches that I talk to, and they work with special forces units. So, it's just kind of knowing your role. Like, my role is to be an expert, and so I get to just go out, and we're talking about I'm a podcast whore, an education whore. I am just trying to absorb and learn as much as possible so I can do my job as a performance coach really, really good. And that's the expectation for all of our coaches. There's a sales guy. There's the person in charge of pro sports who needs to build relationships with agents and follow up with athletes. And so, almost like any team, which we certainly are, you have to know your role and communicate up and down the chain. And so that's kind of how getting the athletes in the door helps. And I certainly meet a lot of different gym owners. I just went to a Thomas Plummer education course. So I'm very familiar with, once again, all the different models out there and the different ways that you need to grind and be efficient in the way that you build your reputation to get your clients.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, yes, there are advantages that people walk through the doors here, but they didn't have to go to you. There's how many coaches here on site.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's earned as well, and that should be celebrated in itself for you to, be here 10 years.
Yeah.
Because that means they're fulfilling you not only financially, professionally, and personally. Like, because you could go anywhere and get a job, and pretty much with 10 years experience here and your reputation, like, you can go get a job at any performance facility and be the guy.
Yeah,
right?
I would something like that. There's a lot of smart guys out there.
For sure.
It's an interesting battle that we have, though, because I might have to go lecture, I might have to go on vacation, and so we're trying to explain to athletes that we have a system, right? We look at you got a shoulder, torso, and hips. So does a baseball player. So does a tennis player. And so because we're all well versed in the system and well educated on many other tools. Now, maybe having a different coach train you on Friday or next week is a good thing. And so it's a good and a bad thing, right? You build this reputation, and then all of a sudden an athlete's like, what do you mean you're not going to be here, Sam, on Friday? Like, this is my offseason. This is my opportunity to get better. It's like, no, trust me. The coach next to me is just as good, different perspective, maybe a better perspective. Maybe he'll see something that I don't see. And so that team aspect and being able to trust the Exos training system and trust your peers around you, because we all hold each other to a certain standard, is really important. And I think, that's another big piece, is like, you are some of the people that you surround yourself with. And if we let each other kind of slide by and not go to education and not be fully focused on your athlete, and I thought this athlete had those goals, but they're training with this, so that's a big piece, is like, who are you surrounding yourself with? What resources are you flowing through on your social media mindlessly that are starting to affect the type of coaching that you're putting out there?
I think that's a really good point too. Just the intake of information, even if it's not something you're going and digesting on the training floor, but like, you consistently see the frog or whatever in your fitness feed, right? It's going to have some sort of binary effect in terms of how you look at things, just because that's a new lens or scope of perspective that you're intaking.
Yeah.
Run us through. I know a lot of our audience is super into the concept of training pro athletes.
Okay.
Right. A lot of people, it's the sexy part of our job.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you do?
Yeah. So I if I'm talking to someone like yourself, I would say, what do I do? It's first starts with an evaluation.
Yep.
And everything's general. Once again, like, you've got wrist, elbows, shoulders. So we start very specific. Very general, and then we go specific. Okay, Sam, let's talk about your season. Let's talk about what your coach would say you need to improve upon. Let's say what your coach would tell me are your strongest assets. So we start to kind of build this one-on-one, bio of who you are physically, mentally, physiologically, through nutrition. And we always kind of meet the athlete where they're at and make some small upgrades. Because if you're a professional golfer and I see that you're slightly rotated left, and I need to create symmetry because that's what the FMS screen, which I like, says, yes, but all of a sudden if I rotate your whole thorax this way, now all of a sudden your whole perception of striking that ball, which you make all your money on, is changed. And so we really try and make small upgrades over time to our athletes, and we try and keep their strong points strong and slowly bring up their weaknesses. And that's a little bit of the art. We always say there's the science of what we do, but then there's the artistry of what we do as well. And so we start with the evaluation, which is so key. And from there, I would say the Exos training system really starts simple once again, and then goes to more complex or more sport specific. So we look at the foundations. Does your hip work like a hip? Do you have adequate hip mobility, adequate hip stability, and do we have adequate strength through your hips? Most athletes are going to be, what do you want to do? I want to get bigger, faster, stronger. Okay, well, maybe we don't need to get bigger, because we got to think about pound for pound horsepower. It depends on your sport, your position. And so we need to get you faster. And so that's where, looking at the hips, the torso, and the shoulders, what we call the pillar, that's usually my starting place for an athlete, unless we've identified, that Achilles tendonitis that's been killing you, that big toe, turf toe that you've had for 3 years. Now that might become more of our focal point. And that gets drawn out in the evaluation. And it starts with our whole system. And I don't want to go into a whole education spiel, but, we have pillar prep, which is mobility and stability. And then we get into movement prep, which is dynamic warm-ups, but those warm-ups are patterns that are specific patterns that we need you to be mobile and move through so you can express them on the field. So if we can't do a lateral lunge, we're not just stretching your groin. I'm seeing, can you load in and out of your hips, because today's going to be a change of direction day. From there, we go into plyometrics. That might be lower body. That might be total body with med balls. It might be building the brakes before we build the horsepower in the weight room. And then we'll go into strength and power in the weight room, and then conditioning, and then some type of recovery. It might be the simple just grab a shake. It might be you and me are doing 5 minutes of yoga. You and me are going to go do breathing work together. You're going to go out to the hydrotherapy. And so I'm just walking these athletes through the entire training system. And at some point, I'm explaining to you why, hey, your wrist is a limiting factor because your shoulder is the major issue. And that was found through our team within PT and our overall knowledge of, the pillar. So it's really general, and then it gets very sport specific by the time you leave here, and the more we get to know your body and what your exact goals are.
How do you get buy-in for that kind of thing? I mean, you're trying to tell me, like, let's say I'm Mike Trout, for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
One of the best athletes on the field in baseball in terms of his capacity. And you're sitting here and I can hit 30-30. I'm a 30-30 guy hitting 320 a year. And you're telling me my hip doesn't work.
Yeah.
But like, can you go do that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you get the buy-in for them to like want to sit down and do an assessment and break down things so that way they can be more successful for the longevity of their career, not just a splash in the pan?
So I think it's two things, and you have to somewhat, especially when you're young, you have to really stay in your lane. So this is where guys like Eric Cressy, who I look to for advice, he is a baseball guy.
Yeah.
He knows damn well he can take general principles and help an archer and help a swimmer, but he doesn't really waste his time with that because he's an expert. And so for our young coaches, we tell them just either you've grown up in this sport, you know this sport well, or you know enough to be dangerous and get yourself in trouble. If I try and have a high-level baseball conversation with Mike Trout, I might lose him. But if I talk about a race car and longevity and sustainability, and are you going to fuel that race car with the lowest or the highest quality fuel? Okay, that's your dietitian. That's why I need you to pay attention to the dietitian. I know you're one of the best in the league, but let me tell you about focus and attention and how that's going to help you through 9 innings and 152 games, and maybe increase your batting average by putting some higher octane fuel in there. And so painting those pictures and analogies is a little bit more of the specificity and the art, versus just saying really generally, hey, you've got hips, torso, and shoulders. So does the German national team that we train. So do all the baseball players that came through here. I'm not going to make you a better baseball player. I'm going to make sure your body can do your job better and longer. And so you've got to kind of know your role in that. Am I going to be a generalist and just talk about a shoulder needs to work like a shoulder, and you don't have mobility, or you don't have stability, or your lat's tight, or you don't have strong rotators? I'm not necessarily going to correlate that into, so now you're going to be able to throw the ball harder from the outfield. I might do that because I've been with baseball for so long and I truly see a deficiency. And, so I would really encourage people to be comfortable just speaking in generalities about the human body. We all have a body. The specifics, that's where you might dig yourself a hole with an elite athlete. But I would also challenge people, because we at Exos are working with some of the elite athletes, and I don't want to waste your time. I want to make sure that I make you a better baseball player. Where certain coaches, kind of that GPP approach, might just say, I'm going to make you a better athlete. And there's nothing wrong with either of those approaches, but you will definitely get yourself in trouble if you pretend to be a specialist and you're not.
Yeah. How did you become the baseball guy?
Well, I would say, Exos is really one of their main staples was always baseball. And so as I was learning and coming up, I was always watching under guys like Craig Freeman and Kotzabe and Verstegen and Darryl Leto and John Sterriman and all these guys that were coaching the baseball program. And so that was just kind of next for me, and that opportunity opened up. And baseball is definitely, I've worked with golf and I enjoy working with golf, but I like a lot more of the movement. I want to improve your angle to the ball. I want to improve your jump off the ball, your footwork off the ball. So I very much enjoy being specific to those movement skills in their sport. Versus golf is, okay, that's so specific. Like, I can't pretend to be an expert in golf, and I don't get to teach any movement skills, which for me is the fun piece. And so I just, over time started to self-select that way. Grew up playing a lot of baseball and whatnot, obviously helps. And so I don't know if I would say I'm the baseball guy, but I'd like to think I have a pretty high level of knowledge in it.
What's up, everybody? Jessica here. I just wanted to pop by to give you a friendly reminder to enter into our Fitness Industry Night giveaway, which we do every month. For this month, we're in February 2018. It's sponsored by our friends at Onnit. Thanks, Onnit. They're giving one of you a pair of those awesome Captain America Shield barbell plates. These are those really nice urethane bumper plates, so they're like those solid discs, not the crumb rubber ones. They're really low bounce, which is a great quality for plates, especially for those of you who use them for WODs. They don't go, flying around, bloodying your shins or like breaking mirrors. To enter to win, go to our website, fitnessbreakroom.com, and just leave your name and email on the entry form. And basically, we'll let you know if you won or not at the end of the month. For extra entries to win, you can email me a screenshot of your review you left us on iTunes. If you decide to do that, that's awesome. Thank you very much. You can share the contest on Facebook, on Twitter. You can email it to a friend. We're just trying to make it as easy as possible to share the love of the podcast and for you to win free stuff. So wins for everyone. Also on our website, you can find a video version of all of our VIP interviews like the one you were listening to before I interrupted, and a bunch of other resources we've come across that have made a huge impact on our careers and people we've known in the industry. So definitely go check that out. We keep the website pretty up to date, so every time you go, you should find something new. Okay, that's it for me. Enjoy the rest of the show, and thanks so much in advance for your reviews and your support.
How have you been able to take all this education that you've got? Because like I find myself, because I don't train day to day anymore, but I get to take a lot of continuing education.
Yeah.
How do you dissect through all that and filter through like what's the best solution for this athlete today and like not get that jumbled up? Like, am I going to work with the vestibular system today? Are we going to work with some RPR? Are we going to work with some FMS? Are we going to work with FRC? We're going to do some clubs or maces or barbell or Kaisers or sprinting. Shit, you can go.
Definitely. Yeah. It sounds complicated, and it can feel that complicated, I think, for a lot of new people. And it's funny when you say, how'd you become the baseball guy? I never think of myself as the baseball guy. I just think of myself as a human performance coach. I always say, give me anybody with, hopefully we're fortunate enough to have 2 arms, 2 legs. Even then, I've worked with athletes that don't, and I'll make you better. And the reality and the answer to that is I've been, fortunate enough to learn the Exos system and see the Exos system work through every athlete under the sun. I mean, Chinese Taekwondo national team, special force athletes, USA skydiving, AVP volleyball, MLS, PGA, NBA, NFL, NHL. Like, I've literally applied this system to all these athletes, and it's never failed me. And so to your exact question is, I will plug in one of those tools, such as the SFMA or the FMS or the latest FRC course that I just took, whatever it might be, into one of those components. So if I know I'm working on your shoulder mobility, is there a more efficient way for me to work on your shoulder mobility versus just yank on your lat and then not stabilize your lat and feed your central nervous system and your brain? So I'm using these concepts and principles that as we become more intelligent and there's more intelligent minds kind of leading our field, I can plug those principles into our system or those tools into our system. And so I don't have to think like, man, should we work on lower body plyometrics today? Yeah, of course we should, because it's part of the Exos system. Do we need to? Did I find out in the evaluation? What's the time? What's the phase? What's your current status? Like, all of those help dictate what tools we're going to choose and when. So it is a lot of puzzle pieces or the art, but at least I have some guidance through the system.
Now, are you programming across the board for other coaches, or do you just like anybody that you work with, you program for? How does that work here?
No, all of us coaches program for all of our groups. There is some, certain. So the baseball programming has been put out for this off season. I will then use that as a template, but I'll have a 32-year-old baseball player and I'll have a 18-year-old minor leaguer. So that template is not going to be perfect for both of them.
Right.
So we'll start to program based off your FMS, your past injury history, what PT says, what you told me you want to work on. There's the meathead baseball player. There's the I want to move like a ninja and be a movement expert baseball player. And there's the I don't know, I'm a minor leaguer, I'm a young kid. And that's where we get to mold you and build that culture. And so each program has a owner, the combine program. Someone builds that program, but it's not just them. They're reaching out to, hey, how did Combine go last year? What did our results look like? What was our % improvement? And they're taking these best practices and saying, this is the Combine program. Now, maybe you have different tools at your facility, different space, different timing. So you're going to make a small adjustment there. for all of our athletes in-house, our coaches are building their own programming, and that's part of the culture is, hey, I saw you doing this with the swimmer. Did you think of that? How come you're doing this? I thought she doesn't start the season until, next year. So why are we doing complexes with her? So it's just holding each other accountable. And we have staff education. We have staff lunches. We have, the baseball group will meet. The combine group will meet. So there's different kind of checks and balances, but it's also nice as a coach because you have a good amount of autonomy.
I think that's really great because you do have that autonomy, but then it's also like no one's offended if I came up to you and said, hey, how come you were doing that variation, that chop action with this guy, whatever, right? And I feel like you do a lot with him. Is there a particular reason why? And it always comes from a good place, not because they're questioning your antics, but because they want to learn the why, the context behind it.
Yeah.
For you, I mean, where do you get to live in that space? I mean, are you also working with a ton of younger coaches, like helping them? Because you're an educator as well.
Yeah. We constantly have a couple part-timers that will then maybe become full-time at another Exos facility, maybe here. So yeah, we're constantly trying to upskill and get coaches to think why, and revert back to the basics as well. And so it's funny, you as a coach, like you get into this real sexy, cool thing, and then you go, oh, I forgot to do isometrics and eccentrics and get back to the basics, right? And so it's the checks and balances and being able to call each other out. And it's I would say it's easier said than done, that's for sure. But it's very, very important that we do that and we don't just kind of run and go train the baseball group and run and train my youth group. It's you got to take time and make time for that.
I love the sense of humility that you have too, in the sense that you're paying a lot of homage to the people that you've been fortunate enough to learn from.
Yeah.
Mike Boyle obviously is very, very well respected strength coach in the nation, as is Eric Cressy.
Yeah.
Have you gone out and spent time with Eric?
Yeah, I have actually. I've been very fortunate. I've sent one of my good friends, a professional boxer, out there, and so I got to know what a great guy Eric is. I've got to see his gym in operations. Then I've got to hear him speak firsthand. And like I said, I know he could go out and be world class with any athlete because the information that he was giving my buddy who's a boxer was just like, wow, like from an evolutionary standpoint, the way that he applied principles to the way that he's going to go about weight cutting and things that you wouldn't consider Eric Cressy an expert in was unbelievable. So I have a huge amount of respect for both those guys.
That's awesome. I just met Pete Dupuis.
At
this last weekend in Seattle at the Vigor Ground Summit.
Yeah, I saw that. That looked like a great summit.
Yeah, it was a really great lineup of people. And for me, I love the performance space, but I also love the business aspect. So Pete, I was like, man, I love that you've turned this internship into like a world-renowned internship.
Yeah.
150 applicants for 6 spots at CSP at 2 locations. I'm like, that's hardcore. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. But being able to cultivate a culture around specific training. And I think, for a lot of our listeners, this world of S&C and personal training, they're 2 different realms ideally, but there's so much out there. And when you're finishing school and you got your deer in the headlights, like you talked about earlier, like networking never came up, right? Collaboration never came up, and continuing education never came up. And it's like, I think that's why I was so excited to have you on, because some of these kids are so like, I don't know what the fuck to do. I'm an exercise science major. Do I go to 24-hour fitness to become a trainer? But I really want to be here at Exos and I want to work with athletes. And this journey, when you got how did you go about getting your internships? Because Mike Boyle's got a ton of requests to be interns there.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about, networking.
Yeah.
Right. The truth matters. I'm in this seat today because of a Boston Red Sox player named Lou Merlone, who's from Framingham, Massachusetts, who knew my cousin, who is basically my older brother. And so he introduced me to Verstegen. I had done my research and had an intelligent conversation with him when I showed up for my interview. Verstegen was friends with Boyle, hit up Boyle, said, hey, this guy lives near you. Can he do an internship while he's home? And so it was all really through who I knew or who I had networked with.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really on purpose. And I would definitely encourage people to be more intelligent about doing that on purpose. When you're leaving school, you've got to, hey, professor, who can you connect me with? Hey, I went to this continuing education course. I went to perform better with my exercise science class. Who should I contact that I saw lecture that is in a town that I'm driving through on vacation in 3 months, right? And so the networking is huge to open up those doors and opportunities, because there's 150 applicants and 5 of those 6 applicants probably have someone recommending them into Cressy's. So you're only making your life harder if you're not networking. and you're not doing your homework before you just show up. And I think that's important. Is you got to pave your own path, and you got to do it intelligently.
Any changes you wish you could go back and do as a young kid that stick out in your head?
Yeah, I wish I had spent more time observing all the different gyms in my area and building relationships with those people. So I went to a physical therapy clinic, unfortunately, as a kid, and I see like, ooh, that guy was just after how many patients could he get in the door and not what type of quality of care could he put out. I wish I went to more physical therapy clinics. I wish I saw different boxes and different huge wellness centers and different boutique gyms to know like what's going to be the best for me. And how can the boutique gym has such good client care, but this guy, Johnny's Gym Performance Center, he's just like run the session and see you later, I'm on to the next one. And so like, how can you create carryover? How can you bring something into the next culture that you're going to be a part of and be an asset? And so I didn't spend a lot of time in the University of Massachusetts strength and conditioning weight room. And the reason why is that I knocked on the door once. And I always tell my interns, if you want something, you're going to have to ask me more than once. That way I know you actually want it. Like I'm not, if I took a time out of my day to always help whatever someone asked me for, I would never get anything done.
Yeah.
But I know if you came back to me 2-3 times, can you go over my template? Can you go over my template? You really want to get better? Now I'm invested in helping you get better. And so I made that mistake. I knocked on the strength conditioning. Here's my resume. Here's my experience. I'd love to help. And they didn't reply back to me. And I emailed them back. I should have showed up every single semester. I'm ready. I want to learn. And then they would have been like, all right, this guy really wants to be a part of our team. So I'd say don't be discouraged because there are 150 applicants. There are thousands of other kids graduating right now, just like you, and you've got to separate yourself. And those opportunities aren't always going to be right there when you're ready for the opportunity.
Why did you become an exercise science major? What was that for you growing up?
I'd say, so it's interesting. I knew this was going to kind of come up is I am a little biased to like coaching should be natural, right? In that I was always the captain of my soccer teams, lacrosse teams. And so I was a really good jock. I was really good at, working hard and training hard and getting results, which was in my sport. And then all of a sudden I went to college and I wasn't an athlete anymore because of surgeries. I had blown my Achilles and had 2 different hip surgeries. And so
by the time you were 18?
Yeah. So, one of the hip surgeries happened in college, but so unfortunately, I was introduced to physical therapy. I was never introduced to performance training. And so my eyes got opened up when I came to Exos and Boyles. Like, no one told me this is my pelvis and this is my abs and this is how you're supposed to train the trunk, not do 8 million sit-ups. I was doing sit-ups because that's
what?
That was the only thing you knew. Exactly, right? And I was running so anyways, the reason I got into the field is because I was a jock and all of a sudden I had to go to school and I started studying physiology and I got really excited. And I think a very important thing that people need to do is don't wait till your senior year to do an internship. Do multiple mini internships. Hey, I'm going to be at On It every single Tuesday from 11 p.m. till 5 p.m. And I'm going to do that for one semester and I'm going to move to another gym. And so I had done my Exos internships when I was a freshman in college, actually.
Oh, wow.
And so every physiology class, when we're learning about the ear and vestibular system, I'm like, oh my, so when I have a guy move his head and he lowers his center of mass and like, oh, how about this? And all the kids in the class are like, this is not going to be on the test, but I was so engaged because I could connect that to a real world. So I think that's really important. So basically I was a jock. All of a sudden I had a place that I could take my education and utilize it, which was in my internships. And then I just got really into studying. And so I'm big on, you need to have some natural leadership qualities. And then 2, I barely read books before I started college. And so it just takes hard work and determination. You can do anything you put your mind to. And because now I enjoy reading, I pride myself. I got A's and A- in organic chemistry. And my parents are kind of like, what? Is this the same kid I know? So I'm a little bit biased towards that. I've seen interns show up who kind of are really quiet. I'm like, nope, doesn't have it. Move on to the next guy. But they do develop over time. And so you have to just, evaluate yourself. Like, if I'm a quiet individual, is that a good thing for a strength coach? Doesn't mean you need to be the loud, rah guy, but I got to be able to step up and have an intelligent conversation. I got to step up and explain to an athlete why this kettlebell armbar actually matters for your career versus just, nice and quietly. Yeah, dude. Okay, good. So I think some things are innate and some things you can build. And that's kind of how I became a strength coach.
Love it. And flash forward, how many years you been in this? 15 years?
Yeah, 15 years if you include my internships and all that. Yeah.
How are we feeling about it now?
I love it, like, more and more every day. I really like the influence that we have, not just on our athletes, but their lifestyles and those around you. You know, all my friends that I hang out with, my family, you get to reach into their lives and upgrade, you know, their mindset, their nutrition, their movement. And so you're really helping others. It's not just, I helped my baseball group today from 10 to 12.
Mhm.
I think you're making a real impact in those, in the culture and the society that we live in. And I think that's very fulfilling, and it allows you to be yourself. You don't have to be someone you're not, which is nice in our field as well.
Have you had a particular like aha moment? Like you had an athlete come in the off season who was pretty beat up or wasn't moving, like maybe they didn't perform super well, and then you got to work with them, and then you got to see exactly what you worked on all off season translate on the field.
Nope.
No.
You know, that's you know, the grass is always greener. There's always good and bad, and I joke with that because I'm sure, you know, I can see some trends, but it's very hard to take credit when a guy. I have the easiest job. A guy shows up at the end of the off season. He spends 6 to 12 weeks with me. It's like any stimulus is going to get you better potentially, right?
Totally.
But I do have a lot at stake because a lot of our athletes are multi-million-dollar athletes. I screw up your arm, your leg, you get hurt. Like there's a lot at stake. So it's, when you're working with a team long term, you can say, okay, here's the data that shows you've improved from a freshman to a senior. Here's the culture, the number of games that we've won and lost. And at Exos, you don't always have that, right? And so I joke that the answer is no, because we won just in this world, and that's what's so exciting is I don't know if my improving your strength, improving your power output, improving your capacity, did that carry over to your sport? I can't 100% say. And so we're constantly on this quest to better dial in the exact prescription that we give you. And so I can't take credit for what another athlete did.
I love that I can throw you a question and you just go exactly the direction I want you to go with it, because that's the route people, right? They're like, oh, well, I'm influencing change in all these athletes. And I'm like, okay, LeBron is LeBron. Like, what are you going to give LeBron to make LeBron better?
Yeah.
The only thing that you need to worry about giving him is not fucking him up.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not impressed by, I mean, and not that LeBron's trainers aren't good. I don't know them personally, but it's like he's already literally the best athlete in the world.
Yeah.
What are you going to give him that's going to make him a better basketball player other than helping his longevity?
Yeah.
Right? The best ability is availability at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I think that's an important piece. It's all goes to that balance though, and knowing the time of year and what tools are you injecting, and knowing your athlete, like is helping LeBron with his mindset going to help with his recovery, with his, you know, movement quality, with his mobility. Like you can't just throw it all at them. And so you've got to be specific and targeted and know your athletes and know your clients, right? And that's really important, is once again, you have all this information, what and when and how do I influence them to utilize a little bit of that? And to try and take credit is tough. But when guys are coming back year after year, when you're seeing other coaches and cultures change, then you know you're moving in the right direction. One of my favorite things is going to continuing education. And yeah, you always want to learn something, but just if Kelly starts talking about it and I'm thinking about it and I'm doing it almost close to that, or I know that's a staple and he says it's a staple and a necessity, then it's like, good, we've got our rocks and we know we've got to stick with those. And so you got to find those commonalities is really important.
Good information should not displace good information.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the guy on the rock at the end of the tunnel that's like yelling at everybody like, oh, if it's not my way, you guys are all wrong.
Yeah.
And then you got 25 other people going, I mean, you're not wrong. But it could also be this. Like, let's not get so dogmatic about, well, the barbell back squat is the only way to make someone more powerful in their hips or in their legs. And you're like, it definitely has value.
Yeah.
But could I also get that from a medicine ball? Could I also get that from isometric loading or using a Kaiser? Or what is the best tool for the job?
100%.
Did you come through like a particular like stream of like, were you powerlifting or Olympic lifting?
Yeah, you know, I think probably advantageous for me. I came through as a soccer and lacrosse player, and so there wasn't a huge influence of strength and conditioning.
Okay.
And so, you know, Mike Boyle and Exos were my introductions to performance training. So I'm very happy that I don't have a background in Olympic lifting and powerlifting. I would say definitely bodybuilding, like what kid didn't start out as a bodybuilder initially. That's probably where I first started. But I just can't stress enough, and I hate to say it because it's cliche, like being open-minded and then being able to use principles to guide those, being able to use examples, being able to, a big thing for me right now is learning from older people. So Dan Path, I'm going to Steve Maxwell's course next weekend. Like
Nice.
these guys are tried, true, and proven with their methods through longevity. Like we don't need to recreate the wheel just because there's a new cert out or because there's a new blog post out. And so being open-minded, being a critical thinker, and my favorite thing as a presenter, and it's tough because I want to give people information and something you can use Monday, is it all depends. And those are great examples that you just brought up. Those are all going to work, but you better be able to say why. Okay, why barbell? Okay, why not this? Why?
Yeah.
And have an answer. And you may not have those yet, and that's where sticking to principles and, if others high-level people in the field are doing it, then you probably can't go wrong. But if you're just doing it because you saw it on social media or you think it's a good idea, you got to think first. And the things that we always teach all of our coaches and interns is, first, it's got to be safe, and second, it's got to enhance their performance and decrease injury potential. If every exercise you're not doing is safe, decreasing injury potential, and improving performance, you can select a better exercise.
Yeah. I think we get really caught up right now, especially with the accessibility of information from Instagram and YouTube, that like, oh man, that looks like a really cool exercise. Like maybe they even see you doing it, right? In some sort of form, and they're using some Kaiser chop. We're just going to use a stupid example. And they're like, oh, well, how can I expand that or be, which is fine.
Yeah.
But they can't tell me why, like why am I doing it? Is it to create lower body stability and upper body rotation? Is it to, and you brought up a really great point in terms of training philosophy. Like, are we training the horsepower? Are we training the brakes? Are we training the starter? Like what piece are we working with the athlete? And it's not just about how strong you are or how fast you are, because if you don't know how to control that, right? I can give you all the mobility training in the world, but if you don't know how to move and control your shoulder, it doesn't really matter how hypermobile you are. At the same time, you can be super strong, but that doesn't make you a good an athlete or a football player.
Or be able to utilize that range in your sport or whatever it might be. Yeah.
You have the luxury, and as do I, that you get to take a ton of continuing education, which is something that a lot of other trainers don't get to do. They might get to go to one cert a year. Hopefully, you guys are going to one cert a year at least, right? Save your money, put money aside. And we get it. Like when you're starting out, like you don't have any money. Like when you were an intern, like God, I couldn't even fathom going to all the courses that I'm going to right now.
Yeah.
Right. And you're
absolutely.
like, oh, but that's something that has been awesome for us as we've grown in our career to do. What's some of your favorite stuff out there right now?
Yeah. Well, I think I created a list for our internal continuing education. I gave a little webinar and I listed all my influencers, and it must have been like 20 people. So I'll try and run through.
You're good.
Some of my favorites: Kelly Starrett, Mike Boyle, Eric Cressy, like I said, all of the Everyday's Game Day, Core Performance, Exos books, the Exos certifications, the Boyle certification, anything Gray Cook and Lee Burton, the FMS, SFMA guys put out is great. Movement. And then I'm loving Ido Portal. Everything has its place. I love the stuff that you guys are putting out. Who else is in that list? Strong First is in that list. Elite FTS has some great stuff online. FRC, I love those principles. And when you start to see a lot of those principles combined, those are the things that I'm taking away from the education pieces, which is huge. And so those are my biggest influences, I would say. I'm sure I'm forgetting people. I've also taken a lot of yoga and Pilates and physical therapy type courses, or
like
picked
DNS.
A lot of PTs like DNS. Yeah, that's another big one. Original Strength is another one. But those are my influences. It's Olympic lifting, it's track and field, it's strength and power, powerlifting, it's Pilates, yoga. It's really taking a multifaceted approach and learning something from everyone, because those are all human movement, and that's what I'm obsessed with.
How do you siphon through all that information in your head? Like, let's say you go to 3 courses in 1 month, because that's how that worked out. Like, for me, like, I don't have the luxury of installing it into something right away, except for myself, which we're all really terrible about training ourselves.
Yeah.
So how do you siphon through all that information and be able to plug and play with that as you go?
It goes back to the Exos system. So if Kelly Starrett is talking about ankle mobility, and we're screening ankle mobility through the new FMS screen, and I'm just thinking about basic physics and ground reaction forces, and this is the first joint that's going to take all the load, then ankle mobility is important, right? So it's principles. It's that other people are saying it's important in the field, and it's important to like, I'll just use this example is Dr. Andrea Ospino is huge on mobility and getting your nervous system to actively control. That's really nothing new, but he is so hyper focused on it that I have to have a critical eye and say, wait, why is he like barking from this tree? Oh, wait, Kelly Starrett is also talking about mobility. Oh, wait, when we look at the Exos training program, we have to have mobility and then stability. So I'm seeing these commonalities. And so just being critical and finding commonalities and principles is huge. And being able to talk about that with other trainers. I have a couple coaches that I just kind of geek out. We can call each other and talk for an hour, hour and a half, 10 minutes. And so as long as those principles are driving in the right direction, if no one else is teaching it, and it's not a principle by Boyle, and it's not a principle by, then maybe I'm wasting my time, or more importantly, my client's time.
So it's like you built this framework that everything gets to install. Like, okay, well, here's my mobility. I can draw upon stuff from Kelly. I can draw stuff from OS. I can draw upon stuff from Dre and FRC. And it's just about, okay, we're going to work through this. And now I have all these different tools in my toolbox to be able to use.
Yeah. And I guess I missed, for me, it's just been consistency to see change, because I consistently execute the Exos training system. And so, I somewhat jokingly said, no, I've never seen results in my athletes. But I know, like, okay, we always do pillar prep. I've upgraded the way I do pillar prep through influences that I spoke about. And so now when we're in plyometrics, I'm maybe slightly changing some of the movement skills through people that I've been influenced through. Now within our strength and power programming, we need accessory movements or mobility or pre-potentiation, and those are being upgraded and slightly changed. So I have these places within the system that I can start to upgrade the way that I execute the system. And it's not just like, today's just mobility, tomorrow's we're just going to change the way that we develop power. So it's these small upgrades over time that I'm injecting into the Exos system, because I consistently know what an athlete should look like, move like, and improve throughout their time here, because I've been doing that for so long with the same system. So that's another important thing is sticking to a system, or realistically even a template. Because if I use, elite fitness training's template, and then I use one that I got from you, and then I use the Exos template, it's hard for me to quantify, like, what am I pulling out? What am I changing? Am I making adaptations? So consistency is key from the coaching standpoint in the system that you're delivering.
Yeah, I think that's really great how you're able to amalgamate all that information into one. I think a lot of people come into this industry like they want to have their niche, or they want to have their benchmark. I'm the mobility guy. I'm Hunter Cook. And it's like, you're not Hunter. Like nobody else in the world is Hunter and or Dewey, or, you know what I mean? It's but they want to have something they can attach value to, and they want to belong to something, right? You got your sports performance crew, your Mike Robertsons, your Justin Kavanaughs, your Mike Ranfones, and then you have your mobility people, and then you have your unconventional people, and then you have your body weight people. And I think so many people try to live in all these camps. And what I really hope that, Fitness Break Room and On It and our relationship can really do is, like, let's start breaking down all those walls, and, like, you don't have to live in this camp. Because does Mike Fitch and Animal Flow have anything to do with Westside Barbell and powerlifting? No. But I bet some of those Westside guys could maybe learn a little bit about understanding where their anterior chain is and some rotational stability and how that might affect their ability to lift maximal loads. And, I mean, Mike has lived in the Olympic lifting world, but how he can see what someone's mindset is by stepping into the West Side world, and what's their mindset behind dynamic effort or walking with the sled for, 500 yards or whatever it may be. But, like, what's your why? And, when I travel, I always try to step into other people's systems or gyms, like whether it's Tone House in New York, and sometimes it's like, like Rumble Boxing, and it's like, for me, it's just fun. It's just like, let me just see where your head's at. Like, I went to a Orange Theory class the other day. Okay. And not something I would probably normally ever do, but, like, you forget that realm of fitness when, like, On It's a bubble, right? Exos is a bubble. You forget, you're like, oh yeah, the rest of the world operates like this. And it's like, it's so invigorating to re-step into that realm. Like, oh, okay. As much as I think that everybody thinks about frontline engaging and, disconnection in here, the rest of the world doesn't give a shit about that or understand it. So
and that's not what's selling. And Orange Theory is going mad. And that's a challenge that I have to myself. Is I'd say, because I've been in the performance field long, is trying to search outside. Like, what is aeronautical field doing? What is public speaking and communication classes teaching that we can bring into our field? And So it's, you've got to continually be open-minded. And it's interesting too, because if Cressy wasn't a baseball guy, I don't know if I would trust him if I were a baseball guy, and maybe he wouldn't have that reputation. I think those things come with time and with passion, and I love all those individual pieces that you just spoke about. And so this being a specialist is hugely important, but you've also at times got to be a generalist, and a hunter could sure as hell do some performance training for people as well. And so it's, you definitely can make your bread and butter as a specialist. But especially when you're young, you better be a generalist, because you don't know. Maybe you were made to be a yoga teacher and run your own yoga studio, but you were always influenced by these macho dudes in strength and power. So I think being open-minded and trying and looking at a lot of different pieces. One piece, I was always the science guy and the fitness and the sports guy, and now it's like, oh shit, I wish I paid a little bit more attention to math and numbers and business. And I love the angle that you've taken, because at the end of the day, money makes the world go round. Mm-hmm. And as a fitness guy, I'm a strength guy, don't worry about what you got to pay me. No, that matters. That's really important. So I can have a job, so I can have a paycheck, so we can keep the lights on. And so you've got to open your eyes and not run down a rabbit hole. Yeah.
It's funny doing these podcasts like with you, and then I just got back from Jimmy Ewan, and it's like, God, if I wanted to take you down a rabbit hole, like we could put you down in the exercise phys rabbit hole, training, programming, and then, but I'm like, we'd lose people. And like, there's a ton of really great information out there regarding programming, but I think the real big goal for Fitness Break Room is like, oh, you have a story. You didn't just wake up and you're the performance manager. You didn't just start training all these pro baseball players and golfers and athletes. It wasn't magical overnight. Like, it took a journey of hard work, interning, and going and finding yourself and understanding like, okay, I've got to be a generalist first to learn how to work with people. I've got to learn how to talk to my peers. I've got to learn how to talk to athletes, because what people don't know about training pro athletes, it's also a lot of bargaining.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we're just going to do 6 tempo, 20-yard sprints at 70%. Man, can we just do like 5? You're like,
yeah, you hit the nail on the head. My fiance always says I'm a really good bullshitter. So I'm trying to bullshit them into things that are going to be good for them.
Totally.
But yeah.
So I love that you're able to tell this long story about, who you are and where you came from.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I like to end every episode with a little nugget of information, and not there's been a shitload of nuggets in this episode. What's a piece of advice you have for a brand new trainer getting into the industry that they can take away?
Yeah, I think we mentioned it, and I tried to mention it a few times. I think, I don't know, in no particular order, network, build relationships. Relationships are so important, and give value back to someone when you're building that relationship, and be open-minded. If that's open-minded and I got to study a little bit more business, I got to put my head down and just get through these books and study for this. Like, there's a million ways that your mind controls the end result. And then the last piece would be continuing education. And especially in our field, we can't pretend to know everything. So those 3 things: network, be open-minded, use your mind, and continuing education.
That's awesome. Where can people find you?
Well, Team Exos has tons of educational resources, which is where my whole kind of platform and principles was started with. There's personal training certs, there's performance training certs, there's mindset. There's everything there. There's online, there's in person. And then there is my social media. I would say is probably the easiest: Facebook, Instagram. I love meeting people, and I know you through social media. We've met in person, but I just I love social media for that reason, and I've learned a lot of great stuff through social media and good friends and whatnot. So that'd be the easiest. And if you're in Arizona, definitely stop them by. I love training and talking shop with people.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric, for being on the show, and thanks everybody for watching, and appreciate everybody's time joining the Fitness Break Room.
Thanks again for listening to the Fitness Break Room podcast, everybody. You can follow us on Instagram at Fitness Break Room. And if you're looking to enter our monthly fitness swag giveaway, you can visit our website, fitnessbreakroom.com, and all that info's on the homepage. Hundreds of dollars worth of awesome stuff, so I wouldn't miss that. And then you can even subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and leave us a review if you're digging what we're bringing you. That would be awesome and very helpful. Okay, guys, have a beautiful week. Stay strong, and always look out for the little guy.